Well, I joked with my first video on this subject, tarot, that I, as a novice, was probably about to fall down a rabbit hole, and I kind of did. So, let's look at a great old pack of Marseille cards. Marseille is in Marseille, France, an important center of production for tarot cards. France really embraced tarot cards after their invention in Italy. That's where tarot cards were invented, in kind of the early Renaissance, northern Italy, by the way, but France is where their esoteric, spiritual, fortune-telling, whatever you want to call it, use was invented. That was a little bit later. Originally, they were just a gaming instrument and absolutely nothing more, so it's really odd that this whole mystical adoption took place, but it did, and I find that interesting as well. So let's stick to the basics here. The tarot deck is fascinating, even if you don't believe it has any, divinatory powers, which I don't. Tarot cards are not the original Western card game from which all others come. That's a piece of misinformation. It is one of the earliest Western card games. Came along not long after the, adoption of playing cards from the Near Eastern Islamic world took place. But no one can explain exactly how they were invented, because they're kind of unique. But first of all, we've got 4 suits: cups, swords, batons, coins. And that part's not unique. All the early decks copied the kind of 4-suit structure from the Near East. And here you've got the ace, right? The ace of coins, the 2 of coins, 3 of coins, and you basically go from 1 to 10 in each of the 4 suits. And then after 10, you have the 4 court cards. You have a page or valet, a knight, queen, and king. That's 14 cards total. 14 times 4 is 56, so you had 56 cards of what's called the minor arcana. Here are the 22 cards of the major arcana, and these are the big mystery about tarot. Nobody knows exactly why these were invented or put into what was otherwise a regular playing deck. They exist completely outside of the regular system. They don't belong to any of the 4 suits. Originally, they did not have numbers. You just had to memorize the order, and that was crucial to gameplay because these are the trump cards of the game, and one of higher rank would trump one of lesser rank. So like the emperor would trump the empress, because she's 3, he's 4. So the game was often called Trionfi. I don't know how to pronounce it, but triumph in Italian. So here is the minor arcana again, right? These 4 sections, and if we peel off the 1s, the aces, then you get the 2s, and you can get an idea of what all of them are going to look like, although we'll look at some more examples. With the exception of that 2, the 2 of coins on the left, that's a special card. With the exception of that, the aces are highly decorated compared to the other minor arcana cards. And that was surely just an artistic consideration, but it later meant that people interpreted the aces, those cards, as being symbolically potent. So kind of interesting. Anyway, along the top here, you can see the aces followed by the 2s. And I like how the suits don't have to match in any way. See the batons, they're straight, the swords are curved, or the geometric design on them is. The cups are completely different. Here we've got the 2s on top and the 3s along the bottom. A few of these cards happen to have come out upside down, by the way, but you can barely tell unless you know these pretty well. And this is the thing about the original tarot pack. The 56 cards, so the majority of the deck, were not lavishly decorated, right, with individual scenes and pictures the way modern tarot decks are. Now we've got the 3s on top and the 4s on the bottom. You get the idea. And people still manage to find ways to interpret the symbols we're looking at and the numbers behind them, the 4s, the 3s, etc., symbolically, mystically as well. So swords might represent conflict in your life. Coins, gold coins like this could obviously make somebody think about money matters. So you have these 4 different sets that have kind of a shared theme, right? All cup cards have a shared theme, all baton cards have a shared theme, and then you have individual numbers, and then you have court cards. Mix it all together and you can get a spread or a hand like this. So a reader might say, well, look, you have the ace of batons, right? That's the beginning of what that suit represents. The 10 of cups is kind of the end of the cycle of what that other suit represents. And then you have 2 pages or valets, 1 of swords and 1 of coins. So how do you wrap all that up into a coherent story? And that, to me, is what reading the cards is about. It's really kind of a storytelling exercise. It's just, when it was cast as fortune-telling, it was, a theoretical story, or one that purported to tell what was going to happen. See, I dropped the Ace of Swords on there and removed 1 set, and now we have a completely different read, like a different story. And on top of that, two people doing reading, two tarot readers might look at these three cards and come up with two different interpretations. And now you have totally mixed it up again. So you can see how basically you have a very large pool of possible combinations. Adding a major arcana card, 2 out of 5 being different the next time you draw a set of 5, etc. But now let's move on to the major arcana and deep dive on them from a historical standpoint. And again, these were what really made the tarot unique. The Fool, a common, poor, wandering entertainer. The Magician, a humble street entertainer. A little bit of a hustler as well. La Papis, now you have an authority figure, a Mother Superior type figure, sometimes linked to the myth of a female Catholic Pope. Then you have a secular female authority figure, the Empress, followed by the male version, the Emperor. And now you get a male spiritual authority figure. In this little gallery, these first 6 cards would have been instantly recognizable to people of the time of the tarot's invention. You had kind of a hierarchical walk through society, a very abbreviated, compressed one, but that's what you're doing. You have people from the street, you have kind of governmental authority, and then religious. And it very purposefully walks through them in ascending order, as the entire set of 22 does. So next you have the Lovers, and now you have a supernatural element, because there's Cupid, or Cupid-like figure up above. The Charioteer, this is more of a mythical person than any of the people from the first 6 cards. They were more real-life characters, if you will. Now Lady Justice, also more mythical, and yes, that's the same one you see in courtrooms today. The Hermit, a very recognizable kind of religious archetype, a spiritual seeker. Then you have the Wheel of Fate or Fortune. This was a very recognizable image from the Middle Ages. Different manuscripts would have different versions of that. Sometimes it was people on the wheel, sometimes animals, and it was a symbol of changing fortunes. So in this second set of cards that we saw, we left the kind of real-life characters and moved to more mythical ones, right? You have Cupid, you have Lady Justice, kind of a goddess-like figure. So we're ascending now, and we continue to. Here, a woman taming a lion is a symbol of force, or actually the virtue of fortitude. The Hanged Man, one of the more recognizable characters in the tarot, he was called the Traitor, often early on. Then, of course, Death, which was originally unnamed, but later, as you can see here, named. But you've got the Grim Reaper, followed by an angel. This is Temperance. That's another Christian virtue, along with fortitude. And then you go to the devil. So you notice we have this back and forth, right, between kind of angelic and demonic. So this third set of cards, it's like roughly the third, fourth of the set, has this back and forth between kind of Christian virtues and perils, right? Think of death as maybe the angel of death, because you have positive angels and negative angels, like Satan, who of course was originally an angel. The Hanged Man, by the way, was an allusion to Judas, and that's why he fits in with the moral hazard cards. Now we have the Tower, which to me starts a new section, and you have this Wrath of God type scene. The Star has a more benevolent force seemingly coming down from the heavens, or at least inspiring the action below. And the celestial theme continues with the Sun and the Moon, both of which have a pair of creatures, one inhuman and one human, below. And you also have this up above, down below connection. Here's Judgment, and that's the Last Judgment, followed by the World, the final and highest ranking card. This last sequence then works its way even further up, and as you can tell, I'm a big believer that this was purposeful, and it seems pretty apparent that you're working through like a sequential map of the world. And here we're in the celestial sphere, and you've got these heavenly forces and the effects down below. And that ends with the last card because the process is complete. This is called the world. It might be better described in our minds as the universe. So we'll take it from the top, or technically the bottom. Again, you have low-ranking members of society, high, and then highest. So that makes one section in my mind. And then it gets more complicated because you have scenes and forces like love, triumph, justice, truth, and or the passage of time. It's an old man. He was sometimes called the old man. And then fate. Then moral fortitude. followed by sin, right? Judas was the ultimate sinner in the minds of the people of the time. Death. Angels, in this case, temperance. The devil, the ultimate tempter, someone who does not want you to be temperate. And then in the final section, you go to the highest level. It's kind of the world level and the universe level, and that's why you've got, things happening to the planet and, celestial forces, which all, like we talked about, culminate with the totality of everything. I do believe that the tarot was invented solely as a card game, because that's the actual history of it, despite what later generations of occultists claim, or at least in a lot of cases strongly imply. But it still functions as this cosmological mapping, which is really interesting, and is how it unintentionally sowed the seeds for being used as a divination tool and a mystical, implement. I'll make an analogy no one ever has before. Think of the game of life, the board game. Back from when I was a kid, a lot of you might not remember it, but yeah, it was just a silly game. Still, it was supposed to mimic all the different things that happen, the forces buffeting you during your life. This is the Renaissance equivalent of that. And of course, Christian themes and events were a part of it. Tarot then is a mainstream cultural product of its time and place. Now, things have really changed since then, and it's become a Rorschach test for some, a fortune-telling device for others. Putting aside all of that, the roots still are what they are. Well, that is my crash course on understanding the tarot. I hope you found it interesting. Thanks.